Sparks flew as the $388 million engine roared to life, then immediately shut down again. 78 experts had tried and failed, their reputations shattered. But no one expected what happened when a barefoot 8-year-old girl stepped forward from the shadows. Where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments and hit that like button for more incredible stories that will touch your heart. The explosion rocked the entire facility, shattering glass and sending engineers diving for cover. Black smoke billowed from the testing chamber as alarms blared throughout the complex. Robert Blackwell, 58, stood frozen behind the bulletproof observation window, watching his $388 million dream disintegrate before his eyes. "Shut it down! Now!" he roared into the intercom. The technicians scrambled to hit emergency protocols, but the damage was already done. The revolutionary engine, designed to revolutionize clean energy production worldwide, had just suffered its 14th catastrophic failure in 8 months. Robert's weathered face remained impassive, but his knuckles turned white as he gripped the steel railing. His company, Blackwell Industries, had staked everything on this project. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about his legacy. Mr. Blackwell, his assistant Jessica, approached cautiously. "Dr. Harmon is waiting in your office. He's the specialist from MIT. "Number 78, Robert muttered, not taking his eyes off the smoldering wreckage. 78 so-called geniuses, and not one of them can tell me why this keeps happening. The impossible engine, as the media had dubbed it, promised clean energy output 5 times more efficient than anything currently available. If it worked, it would revolutionize everything from power grids to transportation. If it failed, Blackwell Industries would collapse, taking thousands of jobs with it." Robert straightened his tie and headed toward his office. At 58, he'd built his empire from nothing. The son of a Pittsburgh steelworker, he'd clawed his way through engineering school and founded a company that now employed over 6,000 people. He wasn't accustomed to failure. Dr. Harmon stood as Robert entered. He was young, too young, Robert thought, with the confident smile of someone who hadn't yet learned how cruel the world could be. "Mr. Blackwell, it's an honor. I believe I've identified the issue with—" "Save it," Robert interrupted. "I've heard this speech 77 times already. You'll have 1 week with full access to the facilities and all our data. If you solve it, $10 million is yours. If not, I never want to see your face again." Dr. Harmon's smile faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. "I understand, sir. I won't disappoint you." Robert dismissed him with a wave and turned to gaze out the window at the sprawling research campus. Somewhere out there, the answer had to exist. "Sir," Jessica appeared in the doorway, "the board is requesting an emergency meeting. They're concerned about continuing the project." Robert nodded slowly. The vultures were circling. His own board of directors, men and women he'd handpicked, were losing faith. He couldn't blame them. 8 months, 14 explosions, 78 specialists, and $388 million down the drain. "Tell them I'll be there in an hour," he said. As Jessica left, Robert opened his desk drawer and pulled out a worn photograph. A beautiful woman with kind eyes smiled back at him. Eleanor, his wife of 30 years, gone 5 years now to cancer. "I promised you I'd make it work," he whispered to the photograph. "I promised I'd finish what we started." The impossible engine had been their shared dream, clean energy for a dying world. Eleanor had been the heart behind the project, the one who'd insisted they use their fortune to make a difference. Now it was crumbling just like everything else in his life. Robert's phone buzzed. A text from his daughter, Catherine. "Dad, please call. We're worried about you." He put the phone away without responding. His relationship with his daughter had deteriorated after Eleanor's death. Catherine couldn't understand his obsession with the engine. She thought he was chasing ghosts. Maybe she was right. Outside, thunder rumbled as storm clouds gathered over the facility. The irony wasn't lost on Robert, nature's power mocking his failed attempts to harness it. Little did he know, 20 miles away in a run-down apartment complex, a child was tinkering with discarded electronics, her mind working in ways that would soon change everything. 8-year-old Lily Parker sat cross-legged on the worn linoleum floor of apartment 4B, surrounded by salvaged electronic parts. Rain pattered against the single window, but she barely noticed, too absorbed in the circuit board before her. Her small fingers, already calloused beyond their years, worked deftly with a screwdriver she'd found in a dumpster last week. "Lily, dinner's ready," called her grandmother from the tiny kitchen. "Just 1 minute, Nana," Lily replied, not looking up from her work. Martha Parker, 67, wiped her hands on a threadbare dish towel and watched her granddaughter with a mixture of pride and concern. Ever since Lily's parents had died in a car accident 3 years ago, Martha had done her best to raise the child on her meager social security checks. She couldn't provide much, but Lily never complained. What the child lacked in material possessions, she made up for with an extraordinary mind. Martha had noticed it early, the way Lily would disassemble and reassemble anything with wires or circuits, the way her eyes lit up when she explained how things worked, using words Martha couldn't begin to understand. "It's getting cold," Martha said gently. Lily finally looked up, her bright green eyes blinking as if waking from a dream. "Sorry, Nana, I think I fixed Mrs. Rodriguez's radio. Listen." She turned a dial, and music filled their small apartment. Martha smiled. Mrs. Rodriguez from upstairs had given Lily the broken radio last week, promising her $5 if she could fix it. 5 precious dollars that would help buy Lily's school supplies for the coming year. "That's wonderful, honey. Now wash your hands." Over a dinner of macaroni and cheese, the 3rd time that week, Lily chatted excitedly about a documentary she'd watched at the public library. "They were talking about this engine that could change everything, Nana. It's supposed to make clean energy, but something's wrong with it and nobody can figure it out. It's at Blackwell Industries, right here in Pennsylvania." Martha nodded, only half listening. She was calculating whether they could stretch the remaining groceries until her next check arrived. "The man who owns it looks so sad on TV," Lily continued. "I bet I could fix it if they'd let me try." Martha smiled indulgently. "I'm sure you could, sweetheart. Now eat your dinner." After helping with the dishes, Lily returned to her spot on the floor, this time with her prized possession, a battered laptop she'd repaired after finding it discarded behind the electronics store. Using their neighbor's Wi-Fi, with permission in exchange for Lily fixing his microwave, she began researching Blackwell Industries and their famous impossible engine. Hours later, as the apartment grew dark and Martha slept in the single bedroom they shared, Lily's eyes widened. She'd found technical diagrams leaked online, and something about them made her sit up straighter. There was a pattern here, a flaw so obvious to her that she couldn't understand how 78 specialists had missed it. "It's backward," she whispered to herself. "They've got the whole quantum stabilization matrix backward." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating her determined face. She knew what she had to do. The next morning, Martha found a note on the kitchen table. "Gone to fix the impossible engine. Took bus fare from Cookie Jar. Love you, Lily." Martha's heart nearly stopped. She grabbed her phone with trembling hands and dialed 911. Meanwhile, across town, Robert Blackwell faced his board of directors. 12 stern faces stared back at him from around the mahogany table. "We've reviewed the latest failure report," said Thomas Green, the board's chairman. "The consensus is that the project is no longer viable. We're recommending immediate termination of the impossible engine program." Robert felt a cold rage building inside him. "We're closer than ever." "We've heard that before, Robert," interrupted Linda Chen, the CFO. "The shareholders are panicking. Our stock dropped 15% this morning." "Give me 1 more month," Robert pleaded, hating the desperation in his voice. 1 more month, and if we haven't solved it by then, I'll shut it down myself." The board exchanged glances. 1 week, Thomas finally said. "You have 1 week, and that's final." As the meeting adjourned, Robert's phone rang. It was security from the main gate. "Sir, there's a little girl here. Says she knows how to fix your engine. Says it's urgent." "This is absurd," Dr. Harmon scoffed, looking down at Lily as she stood in Robert Blackwell's office. "Mr. Blackwell, we're wasting valuable time." Lily's sneakers were muddy from the long walk after her bus ride, and her red hoodie was soaked from the rain. Her backpack, patched in several places with duct tape, hung heavily from her small shoulders. Despite the imposing surroundings and dismissive glares, she stood with remarkable composure. "You got the quantum stabilization matrix backward," Lily said, her voice clear and confident. "That's why it keeps exploding." Dr. Harmon let out a theatrical laugh. "The quantum... Listen, child, you clearly don't understand what you're talking about. This is cutting-edge technology that—" "Show me the latest simulation data," Lily interrupted, addressing Robert directly. Something in her eyes gave Robert pause. There was no childish excitement there, no game being played, just calm certainty. "Jessica, please pull up the simulation on the main screen," Robert said, ignoring Dr. Harmon's protests. Complex equations and diagrams filled the wall-sized display. Robert watched as Lily's eyes darted across the information, absorbing it at a speed that seemed impossible for a child her age. "There," she pointed, "and there, and there. Do you see it? The resonance patterns are inverted. It's creating a cascading failure in the containment field." The room fell silent. Dr. Harmon stepped closer to the screen, his expression shifting from dismissive to confused, then to shocked realization. That's not possible," he muttered. "How did we miss this?" "Because you were looking for complexity," Lily said simply. "But the answer is simple." Robert studied the child before him. "What's your name?" "Lily Parker, sir. I'm 8 years old." "And how did you get here, Lily?" "Bus, then I walked. My nana doesn't know I came. She's probably really worried." Lily bit her lip, suddenly remembering the trouble she'd be in. "Jessica, please contact—" Robert began. "Already done, sir," his assistant replied. "Her grandmother has been located and is on her way." "Where did you learn about quantum mechanics, Lily?" Robert asked gently. "Library books, internet. I fix things in our building, and sometimes I watch university lectures online when Nana's asleep." She hesitated. "Is that wrong?" "No," Robert said softly. "It's extraordinary." The phone on his desk buzzed. "Sir, the police are here with the child's grandmother." Minutes later, Martha Parker burst into the office, her face streaked with tears. "Lily! Oh my God, Lily!" She swept the girl into her arms, then pulled back to look her over. "Don't you ever scare me like that again." "I'm sorry, Nana, but I had to come. I had to tell them about the engine." Martha turned to Robert, her expression hardening. "I'm sorry if she bothered you, sir. She gets these ideas in her head and—" "Mrs. Parker," Robert interrupted gently, "your granddaughter isn't in trouble. In fact, she may have just solved a problem that 78 of the world's top scientists couldn't crack." Martha looked bewildered. "What?" Dr. Harmon was still examining the simulation, making adjustments based on Lily's observation. "Mr. Blackwell, she's right. The matrix is inverted. If we reverse the polarity and recalibrate the containment protocols—" He looked up, his face pale with astonishment. "It could work. It could actually work." Robert turned to Lily. "If you're right, and it's still a big if, what would you want as a reward? $10 million, like I offered the specialists?" Lily shook her head. "I don't want money. I want to go to school." "You don't go to school?" Robert asked, confused. "I do, but not a good one," Lily explained. "Our district doesn't have advanced classes, and they don't let me skip grades even though I've asked. I want to go to a school where I can learn more, where they have real science labs and advanced math." She glanced at her grandmother. "And I want Nana to not worry about money anymore." Martha's eyes filled with tears again. "Lily, honey." Robert looked between the brilliant child and her devoted grandmother, something shifting inside him. For the first time in 5 years, since Eleanor's death, he felt a flicker of the purpose that had once driven him. "Mrs. Parker, if Lily is correct about the engine, I'd like to offer her a full academic scholarship, all the way through graduate school if she wants it, at any institution of her choosing. And I'd like to establish a trust to ensure that neither of you ever has to worry about finances again." Martha's knees buckled slightly, and Jessica quickly guided her to a chair. "Why would you do that?" Martha whispered. Robert smiled sadly. "Because when someone shows you the light, you don't quibble about the cost of the matchstick. Doctor," Harmon cleared his throat, "Mr. Blackwell, we should test Lily's theory immediately if she's right." "If I'm right," Lily interrupted, "I want to watch. Please?" Before Robert could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the building. His phone buzzed again. "Sir," Jessica said urgently, "it's the board. They've called an emergency vote to terminate the project, effective immediately." The boardroom doors flew open as Robert strode in, with Lily, Martha, and Dr. Harmon trailing behind. 12 startled faces turned toward the unexpected group. "Robert, what is the meaning of this?" Thomas Green demanded, rising from his chair at the head of the table. "We're in the middle of a vote." "I'm aware," Robert replied calmly. "I'm here to inform you that the vote is premature. We've identified the problem with the engine." Skeptical murmurs filled the room. They'd heard this before. "And who is this?" Linda Chen asked, eyeing Lily with curiosity. "This is Lily Parker. She's 8 years old, and she's figured out what 78 specialists couldn't." The boardroom erupted in laughter. "This is ridiculous even for you, Robert," Thomas said, shaking his head. "You've brought a child to convince us to keep pouring money into your wife's fantasy project?" Robert felt his temper flare at the mention of Eleanor, but before he could respond, Lily stepped forward. "The quantum stabilization matrix is inverted," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the derisive chuckles. "That's why the containment field keeps failing during power-up sequences." The laughter died abruptly. Linda leaned forward. "What did you say, young lady?" Dr. Harmon stepped up beside Lily. "I've reviewed her analysis. She's right. We've been approaching the problem backward, literally. The resonance patterns should be reversed to create a stable containment field. You expect us to believe that a child solved this?" Thomas scoffed. "I expect you to believe the science," Robert countered, "and the science says she's right." He nodded to Jessica, who activated the boardroom's display screen. The simulation appeared, showing the engine's original configuration alongside the modified version with Lily's corrections. "We can test it right now," Robert continued. "All I'm asking is that you postpone your vote until after the test." The board members exchanged uncertain glances. "And if it fails again?" Thomas asked. "Then I'll resign as CEO," Robert said firmly, "and you can shut down the project with my blessing." Martha gasped softly behind him, recognizing the magnitude of what was at stake. She placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "Very well," Thomas finally agreed. "One test, right now." 20 minutes later, they all stood in the observation room overlooking the testing chamber. The impossible engine sat on its platform, modifications complete according to Lily's instructions. Engineers and technicians worked frantically to implement the final adjustments. Robert knelt beside Lily, who was peering intently through the window. "Are you sure about this?" he asked quietly. She nodded, but her small hand reached back to grasp her grandmother's for reassurance. "Initiating startup sequence," announced the lead technician over the intercom. The familiar hum began as the engine powered up. Robert held his breath. This was the point where it had always gone wrong before, where the containment field would collapse and the energy would spiral out of control. The hum grew louder. Warning lights that usually flashed red by now remained green. 15% power, 20%, 30%. The board members shifted nervously. Dr. Harmon's knuckles were white as he gripped the railing. 50%, 60%. The engine was glowing now, a soft blue light emanating from its core. No instability warnings, no alarms. 80%, 90%, 100% power achieved. Containment field stable. The technicians broke into spontaneous applause. Dr. Harmon let out a whoop of joy. Even the board members looked stunned. Robert turned to Lily, who was watching the engine with wide-eyed wonder. "You did it," he whispered. For the first time since he'd met her, Lily smiled like the child she was, her face lighting up with pure delight. "Maintaining stable operation," the technician continued. "All systems nominal. Sir, it's working perfectly." Thomas Green approached Robert slowly. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything," Robert replied, "but I believe the board's vote is no longer necessary." Thomas nodded, then turned to Lily with newfound respect. "Young lady, you've just made history." As the celebration continued around them, Robert noticed Martha Parker wiping away tears. "Mrs. Parker, are you all right?" "I never doubted her brilliance," Martha said softly, "but I've always feared it. In our neighborhood, being different isn't always safe. Being special can make you a target." She looked up at Robert. "I've tried to protect her, but I couldn't give her what she needs. The right schools, the right opportunities." Robert thought of his own daughter, Catherine, and the strained relationship they now shared. He thought of all the things he'd failed to see while pursuing his and Eleanor's dream. "Mrs. Parker," he said slowly, "I meant what I said about the scholarship and the trust, but I'd like to offer something more, if you'll consider it. Blackwell Industries has an educational foundation. We could create a special program for gifted children like Lily, children who need more than the standard system can provide." Martha looked surprised. "You'd do that? Not just for Lily, but for others too?" "Eleanor would have wanted it," Robert said simply. "It's what she always believed in, that every child deserves the chance to shine." As they spoke, Jessica approached urgently. "Sir, the press is outside. Word has leaked about the successful test. They're asking for a statement." Robert hesitated. "Lily, would you like to come with me to tell the world what you've done?" Lily's eyes widened, but then she shook her head. "No, thank you. I don't like crowds. You can tell them." Her humility touched him deeply. Here was a child who had just solved a $388 million problem, and she didn't want the spotlight. "Very well. But this is your moment, Lily. Whatever comes next, remember that." As Robert prepared to address the waiting reporters, his phone buzzed with a text message from Catherine. "Dad, is it true? The engine works? Can we talk?" For the first time in years, Robert felt hope blooming in his chest. Perhaps some broken things could be fixed after all. The following morning, Robert's office had been transformed. Engineers and scientists crowded around Lily as she explained her discovery in greater detail. The 8-year-old sat cross-legged on Robert's desk, drawing diagrams on a digital tablet, while some of the brightest minds in the industry watched in awe. "It's not just the matrix inversion," Lily was saying, her small finger tracing a complex pattern on the screen. "There's a harmonic resonance issue too. See, if you adjust the frequency here and here, you get much better stability." Dr. Harmon was frantically taking notes. "This contradicts established quantum theory, but the results speak for themselves." Robert watched from the doorway, not wanting to interrupt. He'd spent most of the night fielding calls from investors, government officials, and media outlets. Blackwell Industries' stock had surged 45% overnight. The impossible engine was now being hailed as the greatest breakthrough in energy technology since nuclear power. Jessica approached with a cup of coffee. "Sir, your daughter is here." Robert's heart skipped a beat. "Catherine, Where? Waiting room 3. She brought her husband and son. Robert hadn't seen his grandson James in nearly 2 years. The boy would be 6 now. Thank you, Jessica. I'll go right away. He glanced back at Lily. Make sure Mrs. Parker is comfortable and see that Lily gets whatever she needs. As Robert hurried through the corridors, employees stopped to congratulate him. The atmosphere in the building had completely transformed from despair to elation overnight. He paused outside waiting room 3, straightening his tie and taking a deep breath. Then he opened the door. Catherine rose immediately. At 34, she was the image of her mother, same determined chin, same intelligent eyes. Beside her stood Michael, her husband of 8 years, a professor of environmental science whom Robert had always respected despite their personal differences. And there, half hiding behind Michael's legs, was James. "Dad," Catherine said, her voice thick with emotion. "Catherine," Robert replied, uncertain how to proceed. Michael broke the tension, stepping forward with an extended hand. "Congratulations, Robert. What you've accomplished is extraordinary." Robert shook his hand, grateful for the opening. "Thank you, Michael, but I can't take the credit. The breakthrough came from an 8-year-old girl." "We saw the news," Catherine said. "Is it true?" "A child solved the problem." Robert nodded. "She saw what none of us could see. Would you like to meet her?" "Actually," Catherine said hesitantly, "we came to see you." "It's been too long, Dad." Robert's eyes filled with tears that he quickly blinked away. "Yes, it has." He knelt down to James's level. "Hello, James. Do you remember me?" The boy nodded shyly. "You're my grandpa. Mom has your picture in our house." Something clutched at Robert's heart. "Does she?" Catherine cleared her throat. "James, why don't you show Grandpa what you brought him?" The child reached into his backpack and pulled out a carefully wrapped package. "I made it myself," he said proudly. Robert unwrapped it to find a clay model of what was unmistakably the impossible engine, painted in bright colors. "It's beautiful," Robert whispered, truly touched. "Thank you." "Mom said it was Grandma's dream," James explained, "to make a special engine that would help everybody and not hurt the earth." Robert looked up at Catherine, who was wiping away a tear. "She loved you so much, Dad," Catherine said softly, "and she believed in what you were trying to do, even when I didn't understand it." She took a deep breath. "I'm sorry for pulling away after she died. I was angry and hurt, and I couldn't bear to see you throw yourself into the project like it was the only thing that mattered." "It was all I had left of her," Robert admitted. "Or so I thought. I forgot that I had you. And James." He stood, still clutching the clay model. "I've made so many mistakes, Catherine." "We both have," she replied. "But maybe it's not too late to fix them." Robert smiled, thinking of Lily Parker and her simple approach to seemingly insurmountable problems. "No, it's not too late." A knock at the door interrupted them. Jessica poked her head in. "I'm sorry, sir, but there's a situation with Lily." "What kind of situation?" "The other engineers. They're arguing with her about the next phase of development, and Mrs. Parker is getting upset." Robert turned to Catherine apologetically. "Go," she said, understanding in her eyes. "We'll wait. We have a lot to catch up on." Robert hurried back to his office, where he found a tense standoff. Lily still sat on his desk, but now she looked close to tears. Martha stood protectively beside her, facing down several angry-looking engineers. "What's going on here?" Robert demanded. Dr. Harmon spoke up. "Mr. Blackwell, the child is insisting that we need to redesign the energy distribution system. She says our current plans won't work at scale." "And you're arguing with an 8-year-old?" Robert asked pointedly. "The same 8-year-old who solved the problem all of you missed?" The engineers shifted uncomfortably. "Sir," one of them said, Her proposed changes would require scrapping months of work. It's not practical. Lily looked at Robert, her green eyes serious. The engine works now, but if you try to build big ones for cities using your design, they'll fail. The power distribution curves are wrong. She held up her tablet, showing complex calculations. See, the energy bleeds off here and here. Robert studied the diagrams, impressed once again by the child's intuitive understanding of principles that had eluded experts. Lily, he said gently, how would you suggest we fix it? You need dynamic redistribution nodes at these junction points, she explained, highlighting areas on her diagram. And you need to reshape the containment field to allow for thermal expansion without compromising stability. Dr. Harmon was studying her work, his expression shifting from skepticism to consideration. That's actually quite brilliant. It would solve the scalability issues we've been worried about. Robert looked around at the assembled engineers. Gentlemen, I believe we should listen to Lily. Dr. Harmon, please work with her to implement these changes in our next prototype. The engineers nodded reluctantly and began to disperse. Robert turned to Martha, who was still standing protectively beside her granddaughter. Mrs. Parker, I apologize for the behavior of my team. Rest assured, Lily's contributions will be properly credited and respected. Martha nodded, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. Mr. Blackwell, this is all happening so fast. Yesterday morning, Lily was just a little girl who fixed broken appliances in our apartment building. Now she's redesigning revolutionary technology. I don't know if this is right for her. 3 months later, the first commercial Impossible engine was unveiled at a special ceremony in Washington, D.C. Government officials, industry leaders, and media from around the world gathered to witness what many were already calling the most significant technological advancement of the century. Robert stood at the podium, cameras flashing before him. At his side stood Lily Parker, dressed in a new blue dress that still couldn't disguise her inherent shyness. Martha sat in the front row, alongside Catherine and her family. The journey to this moment has been long and fraught with setbacks, Robert began. For years, we at Blackwell Industries pursued a dream that many said was impossible: clean, efficient energy that could power our world without destroying it. He gestured to the sleek device on display behind him. Unlike the prototype, this version was compact and elegant, designed for installation in municipal power stations. What you see here will provide enough clean energy to power 50,000 homes, with zero emissions and minimal maintenance requirements. Within 5 years, we aim to have these engines operating in cities across America and around the world. Applause rippled through the audience. But I didn't come here today to take credit for this achievement, Robert continued, because the truth is, after 8 months of failures and 78 specialists who couldn't solve our problems, the breakthrough came from the most unexpected source. He turned to Lily, who blushed as the crowd's attention shifted to her. This young lady saw what all of us had missed. With no formal training, with nothing but her innate genius and determination, she solved the impossible problem and changed the course of history. More applause, louder now. Lily shifted uncomfortably under the spotlight. In recognition of her extraordinary contribution, Blackwell Industries is establishing the Eleanor Blackwell Foundation for Exceptional Minds, named after my late wife, who inspired this project. The foundation will identify gifted children like Lily and ensure they receive the educational opportunities they deserve, regardless of their economic circumstances. Robert gazed out at the crowd, his eyes finding Martha's. Over the past 3 months, they had developed a unique partnership. Martha had initially been overwhelmed by the sudden attention and opportunities presented to Lily, but Robert had worked closely with her to ensure that the child's well-being remained the priority. Lily Parker will be the foundation's first beneficiary, Robert announced. But we expect to identify and support hundreds more exceptional young minds in the coming years." He paused, collecting himself as emotion threatened to overwhelm him. "My wife, Eleanor, believed that every child deserves the chance to shine, to reach their full potential. Today, we honor her vision by launching not just a new technology, but a new commitment to nurturing the brilliance of the next generation." The ceremony concluded with the official activation of the engine. Lily was given the honor of pressing the button that started it up, and the crowd gasped as the device hummed to life, its soft blue glow illuminating the stage. Hours later, after the media interviews and congratulatory handshakes, Robert found himself in a quiet moment with Lily and Martha in a private room at the venue. "You did wonderfully today," he told Lily, who was sprawled on the floor, already tinkering with a small electronic device she'd brought with her. "How are you feeling?" "Tired of talking," Lily admitted, "but happy about the school." Robert smiled. Following the breakthrough with the engine, he had personally overseen the creation of a specialized educational program for Lily. Rather than pushing her into a traditional academic environment where she would feel isolated by her intelligence, they had developed a hybrid approach. Lily attended a private school for gifted children part-time, but also received individual mentorship from leading experts in various fields. "The first group of children for the foundation have already been identified," Robert told Martha. 28 kids from around the country, all with exceptional abilities but limited resources. "They'll start receiving support next month." Martha nodded, tears in her eyes. "Eleanor would be proud, I think." "Yes," Robert agreed softly. "She would." The door opened and Catherine entered with James. "There you are," she said. "We've been looking for you." James wanted to congratulate Lily himself. The two children regarded each other curiously. Despite their 2-year age difference, they were in some ways mirror opposites. James was outgoing and creative, but of average academic ability, while Lily was brilliant but socially reserved. "I saw you push the button," James said admiringly. "That was cool." "Thanks," Lily replied. "Do you like robots?" "I'm building one." She held up the device she'd been working on. "Whoa!" James crouched beside her. "Can I help?" Just like that, a connection was formed. As the children began to work together on Lily's project, the adults watched with bemused smiles. "It's amazing how simple it can be," Catherine observed quietly. "Children don't overthink relationships the way we do." Robert nodded, thinking about how much had changed in just 3 months. His relationship with Catherine was healing. The impossible engine was a reality. The Eleanor Blackwell Foundation was launched. And a little girl from a rundown apartment had changed countless lives with her extraordinary mind. "Sometimes," Robert said, "the most complex problems have the simplest solutions. We just have to be humble enough to see them." Martha touched his arm gently. "Thank you for everything you've done for Lily. But more importantly, thank you for seeing her, really seeing her, when so many others looked right past her." Robert thought of the 78 specialists who had failed where Lily had succeeded. He thought of his own blindness to what truly mattered in the years after Eleanor's death. And he thought of how a child's fresh perspective had illuminated not just a technical problem, but the path forward for all of them. "You know," he said thoughtfully, watching as Lily patiently explained circuitry to an enthralled James. "I think we're only beginning to see what she's capable of." And 1 year after solving the impossible engine problem, 9-year-old Lily Parker sat at her desk in a dedicated laboratory at Blackwell Industries. Her small fingers danced across a tablet screen, adjusting complex equations for her newest project, the miniature impossible engine. "These calculations look right, Doctor," Harmon said, reviewing her work, "but the heat dispersion in such a small space." "I've modified the containment field," Lily explained, pointing to a formula. "It creates a cooling effect that counterbalances the thermal output." If successful, the miniaturized engine would revolutionize transportation and portable power. Blackwell Industries, once on the verge of collapse, now dominated the global energy market, with Robert Blackwell's personal fortune exceeding $60 billion. Martha entered carrying Lily's lunch. At 68, she remained Lily's anchor, ensuring the child genius maintained some semblance of normal childhood despite her extraordinary circumstances. "Lunchtime," she announced firmly. "5 more minutes," Lily pleaded. "That's what you said an hour ago," Martha replied, setting down the lunchbox. "Eat." And as Lily reluctantly began her sandwich, Martha updated her on the Eleanor Blackwell Foundation, established 6 months earlier to identify and support gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Already, 23 exceptional children were receiving educational opportunities they could never have accessed otherwise. "There's a boy in Detroit who reminds me of you," Martha mentioned. "Fixed his building's electrical system at 7. Later that evening at Robert's home, Lily sat cross-legged on the floor with his grandson James, examining his science project on butterfly migration. "The monarchs fly all the way to Mexico," James explained enthusiastically. "Thousands of miles. How do they know where to go?" "Probably magnetoreception," Lily suggested. "They might sense the Earth's magnetic field like some birds." "Cool," James exclaimed. "Can we build something to test that?" Martha and Robert observed the children from the kitchen, where they prepared dinner together, a routine they'd developed over the past year. "She's different with him," Martha noted. "More like a regular child." Robert nodded. "They're good for each other. James doesn't care about her IQ or breakthroughs. He just likes having someone who takes his questions seriously." Martha smiled sadly. That's all she ever wanted too, someone to listen when she said she could fix things. Over the past year, Lily had found a delicate balance. Revolutionary scientist by day, ordinary child by evening. The miniaturization project consumed her working hours, but weekends were filled with more typical childhood activities, often including James. Their unlikely friendship had flourished. Though 2 years younger, James provided Lily with a connection to normal childhood experiences, while she encouraged his natural curiosity about the world. "The prototype should be ready in 3 months," Robert mentioned as they set the table. "Then everything changes again." "And what next?" Martha asked, watching the children through the doorway. Robert smiled. "With Lily, who knows? That's what makes her so remarkable. She sees possibilities no one else can imagine." In the living room, Lily and James had moved on to building a small robot, using parts from his construction set, their laughter filling the house. A reminder that despite her extraordinary mind, Lily was still a child, finding joy in simple pleasures. Robert's phone buzzed with news that Blackwell Industries stock had hit another record high. He ignored it, instead watching his grandson and the remarkable girl who had changed all their lives. A year ago, she had walked into his office when 78 specialists had failed. Now she was family, in all the ways that mattered. And tomorrow, she would continue reshaping the world, one impossible problem at a time. 6 months later, Lily stood on the TED Talk stage, adjusting the microphone to her height. At 9.5, she was the youngest speaker in the conference's history. "When I was 8 years old," she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness, "I helped solve a problem with the quantum stabilization matrix of the impossible engine. Today, I want to show you how we've made it smaller, more efficient, and more accessible." The miniature impossible engine had exceeded all expectations. Small enough to fit in a shoebox, it could power an entire home for a year without recharging. The implications for transportation, emergency response, and developing regions were revolutionary. As Lily launched into her presentation, the audience's initial skepticism, a child speaking at TED, gave way to astonishment. She explained complex quantum principles with remarkable clarity, using analogies that made the concepts accessible even to non-scientists. From the side of the stage, Martha watched with pride swelling in her chest. This was the same girl who used to fix broken toasters in their apartment building, now commanding the attention of global innovators. When Lily finished, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Robert joined her on stage, along with Dr. Harmon and key members of the development team. "Lily will take a few questions," Robert announced. A forest of hands shot up. The selected questioners asked about vehicular applications, safety protocols, and implementation timelines. Lily answered each with precision, occasionally deferring to Dr. Harmon for production logistics. Then came the question Lily had been dreading. "With all due respect," began a skeptical-looking man, "how is it possible that a child solved problems that stumped hundreds of adult engineers? Are we really supposed to believe you weren't coached?" Robert stepped forward, looking angry, but Lily placed a hand on his arm. "I understand your skepticism," she said, "but science doesn't care how old you are. The quantum stabilization matrix was inverted. That was the problem. I saw it because I wasn't limited by assumptions about how it should work." She paused. "If you'd like, I can walk you through the mathematical proof. It takes about 40 minutes. Laughter rippled through the audience. The man looked embarrassed. At the reception afterward, numerous scientists, executives, and innovators approached Lily. Most were respectful, though some clearly came to satisfy their curiosity about the child genius, rather than discuss her work seriously. Through it all, Martha stayed close, a protective presence. After an hour, seeing Lily's energy flagging, she expertly extracted her from the crowd. "That's enough for today," she announced firmly to Robert. "She needs rest." In their hotel suite that evening, Lily sat by the window, watching the city lights below. The adrenaline of the presentation had worn off, leaving her quiet and thoughtful. "You were amazing today," Martha said, joining her. "I'm so proud of you." "They're already talking about what comes next," Lily said softly. "Dr. Harmon mentioned communications technology. Robert hinted at medical applications." "And what do you want?" Martha asked. Lily considered the question. At 9.5, she had already transformed global energy production, secured her family's future, and gained recognition in the scientific community. Yet, there was a restlessness in her, a hunger to explore and discover. "I want to learn," she said finally. "There's so much I don't know yet, Nana, so many questions I can't answer." Martha wrapped an arm around her granddaughter's shoulders. "Then that's what you'll do. You'll learn and grow and ask your questions." As international orders for the miniature Impossible engine flooded in, Blackwell Industries expanded dramatically, building new production facilities around the world. Robert ensured that Lily received proper credit and compensation for her innovations, establishing a trust fund that would secure her future well into adulthood. But money had never motivated Lily. What drove her was curiosity, the same drive that had led her to disassemble and repair broken appliances in their old apartment building. Now that curiosity was reshaping global energy infrastructure and opening possibilities that had seemed like science fiction just a year earlier. The miniaturized engine would power electric vehicles with 1,000-mile ranges, provide emergency backup for hospitals and disaster zones, and bring reliable electricity to remote regions where grid infrastructure was impractical. All because a little girl had seen what 78 specialists had missed. As Lily drifted to sleep that night, her mind was already racing ahead to the next challenge, the next impossible problem waiting to be solved. Tomorrow would bring new questions, new discoveries. But for tonight, she was simply a child who had done something remarkable, taking comfort in her grandmother's familiar presence. "Welcome to Tokyo," the Japanese official greeted them as they stepped off Robert's private jet. At 10, Lily had become an international figure, the impossible girl, as global media had dubbed her. The 3-week tour would take them to Tokyo, Cairo, and Berlin for the official implementation ceremonies of the miniature impossible engine in each region. After much debate between Robert and Martha, they had compromised on a limited itinerary that balanced official obligations with Lily's well-being. James, now 8, had joined them at Lily's request. His presence ensured that amid the formal functions and technical meetings, Lily maintained connections to normal childhood experiences. "Look at all the robots!" James exclaimed as they drove through Tokyo's neon-lit streets. His excitement was contagious, reminding Lily to appreciate the adventure rather than focusing solely on the technical aspects of their visit. The Tokyo implementation ceremony was elaborate, with government officials making formal speeches before Lily delivered her carefully prepared address, translated into Japanese. "Energy shouldn't be a luxury," she concluded. "It should be as available as air, as clean as water should be, and as reliable as the sun rising each morning." Applause thundered through the facility. Officials bowed respectfully to the young scientist whose innovations were transforming their energy infrastructure. Between official functions, James insisted they explore each city as tourists. They visited robot exhibitions in Tokyo, ancient pyramids in Cairo, and historical sites in Berlin. These excursions provided vital balance, allowing Lily moments of childlike wonder amid her professional responsibilities. In Berlin, environmental activists protested outside the implementation facility, concerned about unknown long-term effects of the technology. Watching from inside, Lily was troubled by their fears. "They're afraid because they don't understand it," she told Robert. After debate and elaborate security arrangements, Lily met with 3 representative protesters. With patience beyond her years, she explained the technology, addressed concerns about quantum field effects, and outlined safety protocols. "I understand why you're worried," she told them. "Any new technology should be questioned. That's good science. But I wouldn't create something that would harm the world. That's the whole point, to help, not hurt." Her sincerity made an impression. While the protesters didn't completely change their positions, they developed respect for the young inventor's commitment to transparency. As their tour concluded, Lily reflected on what she'd witnessed: different cultures, various implementations of her technology, and the real-world impact on communities from Tokyo to Cairo. "What did you like best?" James asked on the flight home. "The school in Cairo," Lily decided. "Seeing the lights come on, knowing those kids can study at night now." James nodded. That was cool. Then he grinned. "But the robot exhibition was better." Lily laughed, grateful for his friendship and the different perspective he brought. For all her extraordinary abilities, James reminded her that wonder and joy were just as important as innovation and achievement. The tour confirmed something Lily had begun to suspect, that her work had implications far beyond scientific advancement. The impossible engine and its miniaturized version were changing lives, creating opportunities, and reshaping what was possible. With this realization came a deepening sense of responsibility. If her mind could create technologies with such far-reaching impacts, she had an obligation to ensure those impacts were positive. Martha noticed this shift in her granddaughter upon their return. Lily's questions became more nuanced, considering not just what could be done, but what should be done, and how innovations might be protected from misuse. "You're growing up," Martha observed one evening, watching Lily sketch designs for safeguards that could be incorporated into future technologies. "Is that good or bad?" Lily asked. "Both," Martha replied honestly. "Growing up means seeing more complexity in the world, but it also means having more power to shape that world." As reporters and documentary crews clamored for interviews with the impossible girl, Martha and Robert carefully managed Lily's public exposure, ensuring she wasn't overwhelmed by attention or exploited for her abilities. What none of them anticipated, however, was how Lily's rising profile would attract more dangerous interest from those who saw her mind not as a gift to be nurtured, but as a resource to be controlled. "What about Westbrook Academy?" Lily asked, reviewing the educational options Robert had compiled. At 10 and a half, her customized education combining private tutoring and university courses had begun to feel isolating. "It's the most prestigious scientific preparatory school in the country," Robert explained. "They've offered a special arrangement where you take advanced courses with older students while participating in selected activities with children closer to your age." "Would I live there?" Lily asked, concerned. "Absolutely not," Martha interjected firmly. "Daily helicopter service, home every night." After careful consideration, Lily decided to attend. Despite her extraordinary intellect, she craved connection with other bright minds, not just as colleagues, but as potential friends. Her first day at Westbrook was a whirlwind of introductions, assessments, and adjustments. The advanced theoretical physics course proved exhilarating, finally, material that genuinely challenged her. In the laboratory, she met her research partners, Alex Chen, a 17-year-old quantum computing specialist, and Meera Patel, a 16-year-old biochemist. Despite the age gap, they treated Lily as a respected colleague rather than a child prodigy. "We've established lab protocols," Meera explained, handing Lily a document. "We added your name to the rotation." Lily read it, touched by this tangible evidence of acceptance. They had made space for her, literally and figuratively. "I have questions about your quantum stabilization matrices paper," Alex said, "specifically the harmonic resonance calculations." And just like that, they were talking science, three minds separated by age but united by intellectual passion. For the first time, Lily didn't have to hold back or simplify her thoughts. The social aspects proved more challenging. In a humanities course with students closer to her age, Lily struggled with the complex dynamics of pre-teen social hierarchies. "Why are they laughing?" she whispered to her assigned peer mentor after making a comment that triggered snickers from classmates. "You used whom correctly," Sophie explained gently. "It sounds formal. Most kids our age don't talk like that." "Should I use incorrect grammar to fit in?" Lily asked, genuinely confused. "No," Sophie assured her. "Just be yourself. They'll adjust." By the end of her first month, Lily had established a comfortable routine: advanced scientific courses in the morning, research time in the afternoon, and one humanities course with age peers for social development. Martha noticed the change in her granddaughter immediately. Lily came home mentally tired but animated, eager to discuss new concepts and social observations. "Alex and Meera don't treat me like I'm younger," she told Martha over dinner. "They just care if my ideas work." The Eleanor Blackwell Foundation had grown significantly, now supporting over 60 gifted children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Lily took a personal interest, often reviewing candidate profiles and program structures. One evening, as Lily completed a complex problem set, she received a video call from James. "How's Genius School?" he asked, with his usual teasing. "Challenging," Lily admitted, "but in a good way. How's regular school?" "Boring," James replied dramatically. "But I made the soccer team." Their friendship had weathered the changes in Lily's educational situation. Though they saw each other less frequently now, their bond remained strong, sustained by regular calls and weekend visits. Robert, who checked in regularly on Lily's progress at Westbrook, was pleased with the arrangement. "The foundation might partner with Westbrook," he mentioned during dinner. "Your experience there will help us evaluate the approach." For all the extraordinary elements of her life, it was the ordinary connections, with Martha, with James, with her new school friends, that anchored Lily, providing balance to her exceptional mind and its world-changing capabilities. The laboratory explosion at Westbrook Academy shattered the routine Lily had carefully constructed. Alarms blared as students evacuated the science building, smoke billowing from a second-floor research space. Lily spotted Alex Chen being assisted by teachers, his face smudged with soot. "What happened?" she demanded. "Quantum computing experiment," Alex coughed. "Something went wrong with the cooling system." Emergency vehicles arrived, paramedics treating minor injuries while firefighters entered the building. Lily watched with growing concern as they brought out Meera Patel on a stretcher, an oxygen mask over her face. Later that evening, after being cleared by paramedics, Lily sat in Dr. Walsh's office alongside Alex. The headmistress looked exhausted, her usual composure strained. "Meera will recover," she informed them, "but the laboratory suffered significant damage, and all advanced research projects are suspended pending investigation." When Martha arrived to take Lily home, she was unusually quiet, processing the day's events. "You could have been hurt," Martha said finally, her voice tight with emotion. "But I wasn't," Lily pointed out, "and Alex's injuries are minor." "That's one too many," Martha interrupted. "When Robert and I agreed to let you attend Westbrook, we were assured of your safety." The next day, Robert arrived at their home, having cut short a business trip after hearing about the incident. His face was grave as he discussed the situation with Martha, while Lily pretended not to eavesdrop. "The board is concerned," he admitted. "Not just about safety, but potential liability." "I want to visit Meera in the hospital," Lily announced, entering the kitchen. After some discussion, Robert arranged the visit. Meera was in a private room, her arms bandaged and an oxygen tube in her nose. "The prodigy herself," she joked weakly. "Come to visit the cautionary tale." Once the adults stepped out, Meera lowered her voice. "It wasn't an accident, Lily. Someone tampered with our equipment." Lily's eyes widened. "Who would do that?" "I don't know," Meera admitted, "but the cooling system was functioning perfectly during morning checks. I found anomalies just before the explosion." "Have you told anyone?" Meera shook her head. "Not yet, there's something else." "The night before, I received a strange email asking about our research, specifically about your quantum field manipulation applications to computing." A cold feeling settled in Lily's stomach. This wasn't the first time someone had shown unhealthy interest in her work. "I need to tell Robert," Lily said firmly. When she relayed Meera's suspicions in the hospital corridor, Martha looked terrified, while Robert's expression hardened into something cold and determined. "I'm pulling you out of Westbrook," Martha declared. "Today." "That might be exactly what they want," Robert cautioned, "to disrupt her education and research." "I don't care," Martha shot back. "Her safety comes first." "I'm not leaving," Lily announced, surprising both adults. "But we need to find out who did this and why." The investigation revealed troubling findings, sophisticated tampering that pointed to professional infiltration rather than student mischief. More concerning, the targeting appeared specific to the quantum computing project incorporating Lily's theoretical work. "Someone wants your research," Alex concluded when they returned to their rebuilt laboratory weeks later. But they wanted it to look like an accident. The three young scientists developed their own protective measures, independent of the official protocols. They established authentication systems, created redundant data backups, and implemented buddy procedures so that no one ever worked alone. For Lily, the incident marked a painful loss of innocence. Despite her extraordinary intellect, she was still a child in many ways, believing in the fundamental goodness of people. Now she confronted the reality that her knowledge, her mind itself, was viewed as a resource to be exploited by any means necessary. "Maybe some knowledge shouldn't be pursued," she suggested to Martha one evening, uncharacteristically hesitant. Martha considered this carefully. "That's fear-talking, not wisdom. Knowledge itself isn't good or bad. It's what people choose to do with it." "No, but if I hadn't developed the quantum field theories, then someone else would have, eventually," Martha interrupted gently. "The question isn't whether to pursue knowledge, but how to ensure it benefits humanity rather than harms it." This conversation stayed with Lily as she returned to her research, now with a heightened sense of responsibility. She began incorporating ethical considerations directly into her work, designing systems with built-in limitations that would prevent misuse. "I'm building safeguards into the fundamental architecture," she explained to Robert, "like genetic locks that prevent weaponization." As Lily approached her 11th birthday, she had matured in ways that went beyond her intellectual development. The incident had forced her to confront difficult realities about power, responsibility, and human nature, lessons that would shape her approach to innovation in the years ahead. The Open Source Energy Initiative represents a new paradigm in technological development, Lily explained to the assembled delegates at the United Nations. At 12, she stood confidently at the podium, addressing world leaders and scientific authorities. The past year had been transformative. After the laboratory sabotage incident and subsequent similar attempts to access her research, Lily had made a revolutionary decision to release the fundamental principles of the impossible engine technology into the public domain. By making this technology freely available with embedded safeguards against weaponization, we eliminate the incentive for theft or coercion, she continued. Nations and corporations can implement the technology for peaceful energy production, while the genetic fail-safes prevent military applications. It had been a controversial move. Blackwell Industries stood to lose billions in exclusive licensing agreements. Security agencies worried about proliferation risks. But Lily had been resolute, convincing Robert and the board that this approach would ultimately protect both the technology and herself. The quantum stabilization matrix includes recognition protocols that identify attempted weaponization configurations and trigger automatic shutdown, she explained. These fail-safes cannot be removed without rendering the entire system inoperable. 6 months later, the decision was vindicated. With the core technology openly available, legitimate implementations flourished worldwide, while attempts to develop weapons applications universally failed. Rather than diminishing Blackwell Industries, the move had transformed the company into the leading implementation consultant for the technology, maintaining profitability while advancing global energy transition. Now, standing in the East Room of the White House, 12-year-old Lily Parker prepared to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the youngest recipient in history. "Lily Parker has transformed our world," the president declared. "The impossible engine technology has reduced global carbon emissions by 23%, provided clean energy to regions previously without reliable power, and catalyzed a new era of innovation." In the front row, Martha wiped tears from her eyes, while Robert watched with undisguised pride. Beside them sat Catherine and James, now 10, who gave Lily an encouraging thumbs up when she glanced nervously in their direction. As the president placed the medal around her neck, Lily thought of how far she'd come from the little girl fixing broken appliances in a rundown apartment building. The same intuitive understanding of how things worked had taken her from poverty to the White House, from obscurity to global recognition. Yet some things remained constant. Martha's steadfast presence, her moral compass guiding Lily through increasingly complex ethical territories. The Eleanor Blackwell Foundation, now supporting over 100 exceptional children worldwide, ensuring that other brilliant minds wouldn't be limited by circumstance. At the reception following the ceremony, Lily found a quiet moment with James, who was sampling every hors d'oeuvre with scientific thoroughness. "This shrimp thing is amazing," he informed her, mouth half full. "Try it." Lily laughed, grateful for his unchanging normality amidst the pomp and circumstance. Later that evening, back at their hotel suite, Lily changed into comfortable pajamas, relieved to shed the public persona she'd cultivated. At 12, she was still very much a child in many ways, despite her towering intellect and global impact. "What are you thinking about?" Martha asked, finding her staring thoughtfully out the window. "The 78 specialists," Lily replied. "I wonder what happened to them." Martha smiled at the unexpected response. "I believe most of them still work at Blackwell Industries. Robert didn't fire them. I just wonder if any of them are still trying to solve impossible problems, even after failing once." "I imagine they are," Martha said. "That's what scientists do, isn't it? Keep trying even after setbacks." Lily nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because that's the most important thing I've learned. That failure isn't the end, it's just part of the process." The following morning, as they prepared to return home, Lily received a video call from Mira and Alex at Westbrook. Now, in their final year, both had been accepted to prestigious university programs. "NASA has expressed interest in adapting the miniaturized engine for deep space exploration," Robert mentioned over breakfast. "They'd like your input on the modifications." "Space?" Martha said, a note of alarm in her voice. "Just consulting," Robert assured her quickly, "from Earth." Lily hid a smile, having already privately researched NASA's upcoming missions and the potential applications of her technology. Space fascinated her, the ultimate frontier of discovery where impossible problems awaited solutions. As they departed Washington that afternoon, Lily reflected on the journey that had brought her here and the path ahead. At 12, she had already changed the world once. What might she accomplish next? The possibilities were boundless, limited only by the ethical framework she had developed with Martha's guidance and Robert's support. Whatever impossible problems she tackled next, she would approach them with the same combination of brilliant insight and moral consideration. 4 years ago, a barefoot girl in worn clothes had declared that 78 specialists had gotten the quantum stabilization matrix backward. That moment had changed everything, not just for Lily, but for the world. Yet for all the accolades, perhaps the most remarkable thing about Lily Parker was that she remained, at heart, a child who simply loved to fix things that were broken, to make them work as they should.